You are listening to the People-Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hello, people-centric leaders. It's Bethany Taff again, and I am here with Philip Herzog. Hey, Philip.
Hey, hey. Howdy, howdy.
Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Howdy, howdy. Hi, hi. I don't know why I did all of that. Sorry. Okay.
You're a musical theater kid. That was great. You added so much song to my
Thank you.
really simple hello. Hello. It's
Yeah,
great to
actually, it's funny. I was improving. We were just talking about improving the other day on our team. This has nothing to do with our topic, but we talked about how we should do improv as a team. And I think we would both love it and hate it at the same time.
It would be pleasant and terrifying. It would be fun and sad. It would be Diana Royalty is also with us. What else would it be, Diana?
Would you add to anything?
It would be someone like me hitting the fast forward button, just like move 30 seconds ahead. Just what is happening right now? Where are we going with this?
That'll be fine. Well, we said if we did, we weren't, we love Ashley. She would probably jump. She's going to listen to this podcast anyways. I don't know how Ashley would feel about doing improv, but maybe if it's just with us, I don't know.
We thought the heading, the famous intro for Ashley, it would be the best of times and the worst of times. Improv with my team.
We would make so many memories and laugh so hard, I think.
Should we do an improv game at our next retreat?
Oh,
Maybe so. Yes.
There are several people on our team that would really love that, and a few that would not so much love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can talk about it. Anyways, this is a whole different topic. What you came here for was something to inspire you or help you, I think, as our listeners. And so some of the conversations, you've probably been having lots of conversation about what's happening in our world, within our country, and feeling all of the weight of it. You might even have some hard things happening in your workplace. Maybe it's related to all the things that are happening in the world and the effects of that. Maybe there's layoffs in your workplace. Maybe there's other decisions that are being made around, funding. Can we get the money that we need to be able to continue the work that we're doing? Or maybe it's not related to any of those things, but you're in your workplace and you're struggling to find hope. Either way, something that we know, and as we were talking about this, we thought, okay, how do we take this and make it into a topic that's helpful for our people? And the subject of hope came up as a theme of conversations that we've been having with some people, and one of the ways to kind of like pull it into context and the things that we talk about and the way that we help people is we talk about leadership. And the way that we talk about leadership is that leadership is influence. And so you may be just, in your position at work are not necessarily given, authority over people. You may not be leading a team. You may not be a manager or supervisor. You may not be a CEO. But we believe that you still have influence in your role because everybody has influence. People are always watching you. And so something that we know with Gallup's Strengths Finder, if you're familiar with that, they did a study that sought to find, what are the elements of a great leader? What are the characteristics? What are the strengths specifically of an ideal leader? And what they found is that there's not just these, a certain set of strengths that make a great leader. It's really about what your followers need and how you utilize your own strengths to meet those needs. And so you've probably heard us talk about this before. Those things are trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Those are things that every follower needs. And I think when you think about hope as being one of those, and really any of those, but hope being one of those, I think that's not something we think about in the workplace a lot of how do we create hope in our jobs, or maybe it is in our community. If you think about all the different places that you have influence in your workplace, on the team that you work with, in your home, with your family, in your neighborhood, in your community, and some other aspect. But how do you build hope for people? And what we found is that it's going to be different depending on your strengths. If you're curious to know more about that, I would recommend that book, Strengths-Based Leadership by Clifton. And they have some really good resources to help you understand what that looks like. But let's talk about team here. Let's talk about hope, and how do you build hope within your workplace, and why is that actually important for a leader or any of us to help jump in and support this effort?
Man, that's a tough one. And I will say, as someone who's not exactly like inspirational or hopeful, right? Like, I'm just not one of those people. I think that our leader, Don, does a good job of like always casting the vision for us and kind of saying, here's where I think we're going to go. But then he asks the next question, which I appreciate more, is how will we get there together, right? If this is our vision, if we all think that sounds cool, if that's the hope that we're going to get to, if that's the dream and the where we want to go, what things do we have to do to get there? Because I think for us, hope isn't, like you were saying, Bethany, hope isn't just the thought experiment. It's not just the internal thing. It is an external thing. Hope is an action. And so it's that building, casting that vision, but then building what it looks like to get there, and having people be like, oh, that vision seems crazy, and it could feel hopeless because it's so far out there and so ridiculous and so hard. But when you break it down into these little things, it's actually doable, and it feels good to go do it.
Yeah, it helps build. Yeah, I think the way that like Clifton talks about it is that hope helps employees see a way forward when facing uncertainty. And I think that's where sometimes you struggle when you're in the midst of anything that feels hard or heavy or unclear or uncertain or whatever changes within your organization, whatever is happening. It's figuring out how do we find a way forward. And I think sometimes that's the biggest mental block. The conversation I had with somebody this week about hope is, there is some people kind of view hope, and I genuinely didn't know this, but there are some people who view hope to your point of like it is not passive. Some people view it as a sort of a passive thing, just to say, oh, well, we're just going to hope for this or be hopeful or put our hope in something. And then it feels like, well, I have no skin in the game. There's nothing that I can do then. It feels like nothing. Why would we talk about hope in that way then? And I think my perspective is that it isn't. And like you said, Diana, it isn't passive. It's not a passive thing. So how do we make hope not passive? Philip, do you have any thoughts? I know I'm just throwing it directly at you.
Yeah. It was funny as we were talking about this topic before, and then even in it, and maybe just how hope impacts each of our own personal lives and households differently versus our team. I love Diana's example of Don because it's not that he does that just when he needs to cast a vision. Oh, things are really low or really stressful or really tight. Now I'll cast the vision. I would say Don has somehow systematized hope into how we work. So even yesterday, we had a really cool conversation about some strategy around one of our clients. And Don ended it in his systematic way of retelling the story. This is where the client is. This is where they've been. This is how our team is serving them. We've done a really good job here. Here's the opportunity ahead. And so I like Diana's point of it's not that it's just this metaphysical inspiration that comes at the halo at the time it's needed. It's really practical. And Bethany, to your point, I think hope is a practical thing. If our behavior will show our hopes. And so maybe for me, how do we know if it's an action? Lately, I think for me, my inaction is showing the levels of hope that I have, which maybe on a huge global sense is really hard to look at. But what helps me, Dr. Shane Lopez was one of Gallup's lead hope researchers, as he was described. And he said, hope is the belief that the future will be better than the present. along with the belief that you have the power to make it so. And so, one of the things I think we can do as leaders or influencers, whatever that is to have those eyes for hope and to help instill that, which isn't to just say, wow, gosh, I hope it gets better, but we can make it so. So, what are we going to do to make it so?
Yeah, I really like that because yeah, it's not just saying like, oh yeah, I hope that next, let's if we're just talking about in the context of our business, maybe you're having maybe you've lost some clients, maybe your sales are lower, maybe whatever it is. And you might say, we hope next year is a lot better. And that's good, great, glad we're saying that. But what are the things that we can do? Of course, there's always going to be things that are going to be out of our control, but what are the things that you can do? And then as a leader, even being able to help your people figure out where they fit into that picture too, specifically individually utilizing their own strengths and abilities and within their role. And so how do you make sure? Because I think the more granular you can get with that to build hope, the more purposeful people will feel within their role and more powerful to be able to help create change where they maybe are not feeling it currently. And so as much as you can kind of cast that vision there too, not only bigger picture as a team, but also individually for the people that are on your team working alongside you.
Yeah, I start to think that I need hope most when I start to feel weighed down and just can't see a path forward. There's been plenty of times where I've gone to Dawn and been like, is it ever going to change? Like,
Yeah.
I can't get out of my day to day. This is what I do. And it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, and it doesn't feel like I'm contributing, and it doesn't, like it, I start to feel despair, just that like I don't have a light. Show me the light. Like give me a guide. And each time when Don does provide the hope, it is in action because he's like, that's completely untrue, right? Like there is a way out of this. And what does that look like? And what steps can we take today to get you feeling better? So to me, like he always kind of reminds me that the antidote to despair is action, and sort of that like getting out of it and just shaking some things off and saying, I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to do the next right thing means that you can move it forward. And it inherently gives you hope when you're moving it on your own, right? Like something about the action also equates to hope for me.
Yeah, that's really good. I love the next right thing. Have you ever heard that full like there's a full like poem quote that goes with that?
No, no, I
Yeah.
haven't.
It's a pretty old one. It's attributed, Philip, I see you're nodding, you know what I'm talking about. It's attributed to Elizabeth Elliot, who quotes it. If you know who Elliot is, but anyways, it's a great. I love that full poem. I won't read it for you. You should look it up if you have never heard of it. But I think that's it, right? Sometimes it's like we don't. It doesn't have to be far off in the future. That hope. It can be what's the next right thing right now? What's the next step for me to take in this moment to start to see change or to build some hope for myself in the current setting that I'm in. It doesn't have to be far off. So, yeah. What else, guys?
I like in Diana's story, I recently was coaching someone that was maybe in a similar place, and there was a long list of things that weren't good and that they had not been able to do, or team members who were just so dumb, and their words. And so I was like, yeah, hey, okay. So then do we just keep doing the same things? Maybe I was thinking of the question of like, how big is your circle of hope? And if you're like, wow, really concerned about a lot of things, maybe you need to narrow in hope on a few small things first. So that's what our coaching was. Like, hey, here are the three things you've talked about for a year and a half. And just plainly, they wanted really a direct input. Just plainly, you've done nothing to change any of these things except sit here and talk about them, but not do anything. And so, do you think it actually could be better? And he's like, well, of course. Great. Do you think you can help them make it better? Well, of course. I'm very smart. So then let's do it. And really just reflecting it that plainly back to them, it was like you're sitting in hopelessness by choice at this point because you said you have the resources and you said you have the team. And we're not talking about perfection, but we're talking about better. And then within a week, emailed back, hey, these are the things I started doing. One of the things that I love is for something to become interesting, start being interested.
Mm.
And I think that's a part of hope too. It can despair is one side of that coin. The other side is be interested where you can build hope or be interested where you can make a difference or have engagement. And I think that's partly why we talk about engagement as a success because engagement is where like you can meet these things in a real way. Hey, team, this is hard. Hey, Diana, your work does suck sometimes. And this is where it's taking us. So it isn't to deny what's hard, but it is to move forward together.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I love that. And I think, we have so much influence. It is a challenge. Like you said, we've definitely coached people who are in truly, truly challenging positions. And it is, I will say, sometimes hard to coach people who are going through those challenges um, and feel like they don't have a lot of control in it. But I think that's to your point, Philip, is like that's the role that we have to play is to say in that moment, how do we help create some hope for this person, even though we don't control all the circumstances that are happening behind the scenes within their organizations. But we can kind of cast the vision to say, oh, yeah, so this is your circumstance right now. That's right. We can't totally change that right now. But what are the things that you have control over? What are the things that you could tweak or adjust? Or what decisions do you need to make? Or let's talk about the things that are actually going really well, too, so that we're not dwelling on all the things that might not be going great and making that the sole focus of our life and our situation and our circumstances, because that's not the full story. There's usually more, there's usually better. We were talking about that even on our team too, of like some just celebrating wins. Is sometimes I think we get so even focused and oriented on the things that like we want to improve and the things we want to get better, that it can drag us down if we feel like our only focus is on the things that need to be solved and that are barriers, and we forget to celebrate all of the wins too. So I think that's the other thing, is like just shifting your mindset and remembering to focus on the good things too, which is sort of the positivity side, I guess. But anyways.
I like that. I think a part of that too, hope is probably something you need when you clearly don't have it, which is ironic. You get thirsty when you need water. You need hope when things are hopeless. And one of the things that helps to do is to look back. I love when we do strategic planning with groups, right? The problems always come to the top of mind first, right? Because everyone wants to win and succeed and become a better performer. That's pretty ingrained with a lot of the teams we work with. But it can be really easy to forget to look back. Even Gallup, 10 years of research, engagement is at its lowest in the United States that it's been in a long time. And one of the main things people say they want, teams say, hey, we want to celebrate the wins. We want feedback on what we're doing well, and then clarity on our next steps. What is that going to look like? And I think that is an element of hope as well, to look back and say, oh, not only celebrating success to point the light to it, but also to say, we have done that through so much before. It's rare that you're at your lowest point for the first time. So if you're hearing this, you're like, it feels pretty low. Probably not your first time, probably not your last time. And that is so much a part of leadership. If you're not helping your team see hope and the direction, no one is. And so that's where you come in, leadership. And can you say all four again? Because I do think all four in tandem, all four of those traits are impactful.
Yeah, yeah. So they're trust, compassion, stability, and hope. And those are sort of the things that every follower needs. And so again, it doesn't matter how you are gifted, the different strengths that you have the ability to do all of those things for the people around you. If you are leading a team or whatever, you have the ability to do all of those things, but you're going to do it differently, Philip, than I'm going to do it. I'm going to build trust in a way that is different than how you do naturally, because we have different strengths. And so I encourage people to kind of to look into that more. I think that book that I mentioned before is really helpful for this, but I think it's the reframing of, I think looking back, I think is helpful. The distinction that I would say is, I think we're looking back to celebrate those wins and not to forget the good things that have happened, but it's also building a path for the future. So it's making sure that we don't look at those things and say, oh, I wish it could just be that again too. So I think that's the distinction I would make, is that it's making sure that you're not saying, oh, I just wish we could go back to that. I wish we could just be there again, because that might not be a reality. And that might actually cause you to be less hopeful as an organization, or whatever the situation that you're in. So figuring out, how do we celebrate the things of the past and be able to create a vision for the future too that might look different, and that's okay. And it's a total shift of your mind too.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, how you can use the wins and the hard spots of the past to remind you, like, you can keep going. You've done it before. Keep building it into the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I hope this has been hopeful, that this topic has created and inspired a sense of hopefulness for you, because I think we all need it. I think a lot of people are looking for hope right now in their situations and work in the world, and don't feel like you have no skin in the game. There are some things that are out of your control, absolutely, but you can also take small steps. You can reframe the way that you think about your situation and what's happening, and find the things that you do have control over, and where you can make an impact, and how you can encourage other people and do the next right thing. So thank you all for your time today. And we're excited to talk to you every time we get to record one of these. So, Philip, would you add anything before we go?
No, I think that idea of you have a huge role as a leader to help give hope, and to be a little cheesy about it, I think that hope helps. And so both those, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but people are good at spreading hope. I think it's a good place for you to start.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time, people-centric leaders. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the People Centered Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and